in addition to this rhetorical process, the rhetorical situation, which is kind of what you're dealing with when you're reading, what you have to attend to or look at, there's also a process, like what you do while you're reading. And for complex reading and to read in a complex way, you really need to have a more complex process than maybe that you had in high school or in your just casual reading, right? So we like to talk about the critical reading process as having three big phases, right? You have your pre-reading before you actually read all the words or whatever, and then the active reading when you're doing it, and then the post-reading, what you do after it, right? And you'll probably go through these stages without even realizing it, or sometimes teachers make you aware of the different stages, but especially the post-reading. In school, we usually expect you to do something with it, and especially at the university. And you can respond, you can answer questions. These are very basic, low-level kind of thinking things after a text, like, what did it say? What does this mean? Some of the exercises you've been doing for the first 2 assignments, where you read the article, you answer some questions, you respond. You might summarize, you might reflect. Reflect is like kind of think about, okay, how does this apply to me personally, right? How does this relate to what I think or feel or my experience? But then you get into higher level kind of post-reading activities here when you're talking about internalizing the knowledge that's in the text. These are the kind of higher level thinking skills that professors are expecting at the university level. So internalize, apply the information, apply it to another situation, solve problems with that information, right? Certainly in your sciences courses or social studies courses, any of those courses where you have to solve problems with the knowledge that you gain from reading. And then also imitate or create. I should add create and imitate, and to kind of produce something that you just read is also a very high level thinking skill, to evaluate, to imitate, and to create. So I asked you to go through these phases when you did your first reading I guess the second reading, Bahamian Creole English, Whole Not Broken by Shanti Seymour. I asked you to do this process, right? To scan first in your pre-reading phase, to scan and ask questions, right? And the kind of questions you ask are looking for these basic elements like the title, which tells you kind of what is this about, right? The title, the author, the purpose, the style, the format, the language, the main point. Before you even read, just look at it and think about it. Who wrote this? Why did they write it? For whom is it written? Who is the audience? Is it formal? Is it informal? Is it a textual, visual, or something else? What kind of media is it, right? Are there headings? Are there images? Are there things that I can kind of, help figure out what is going on here? Is it a format or a form, a genre that I'm familiar with? Is it a lab report? Is it a newspaper article? You would expect certain information in those types of writing. Language, is a language easy and accessible, or is it complex and hard to read? Is it complicated? Is it long? This is something you automatically do and just take note of, so then you know how much work you need to do on this text. And then even before you read in your pre-reading, you should be thinking about, okay, what is the author's message or main point? And then what do I need to get out of this? Kind of be thinking. Sometimes it's not clear. Sometimes a professor might tell you specifically, I want you to read this for this. Other times it's a textbook chapter. So it's very clear, there's information, there's concepts here that I need to, definitions, concepts, formulas, things like that I need to understand. And then while you're reading, of course, you want to go back and touch back to all of these elements once again, and you want to annotate. Annotate means to write, usually write on the text if you can. If you don't want to, mess up your book, like I said, you could use a Post-it note or do it in your notebook and copy. But a lot of us just like to, write right in the book. Some people check, some people underline or write in the margins. I like to write in the margins. That is true annotation to me. And now electronically we can do comments in a comment box or something like that. Just highlighting doesn't always indicate, like, it might be important, but then why is it important, right? So you want to annotate. You want to always be summarizing as you're going through, especially a complex text. Okay, what are they saying? What are they saying here? What are they saying here? Am I understanding this correctly? And then also evaluate. Again, that's a very high level thinking skill that you want to be working on and developing, and it takes a lot of time. I'm a professional reader. I have a PhD in English. I read a lot. I read fast. I understand a lot. I still need to annotate. I still need to kind of check and say, okay, what are they saying here? Am I getting this? Is this good? Is this effective? So you want to touch base with all these, how did they present the topic that I expected from the title? Did the author seem to know what they're talking about? Is the author informed and informative? Does it have a clear purpose? And was that purpose accomplished? We're going to talk more about purpose because that's really key. And that came up in the rhetorical situation. That's also going to be a very key part of sort of writing an essay, right? What is your purpose here? And then, was it effective for the purpose? Was it consistent? This is being evaluative. And then the language, what words did I not understand? I'm sure a lot of you are already, when you come across, complex words and words that seem, very obvious what they mean, but then when you're reading it, you're saying, I don't know, that doesn't make sense. So it might be that the author is using the word in a very different way, especially in academic college level writing. They're often really, writing in using concept in a very specific way, right? In different fields. So you really want to make sure you understand literally what the words mean. And what parts are confusing. That's very important to investigate. What are the parts I don't understand? Just question mark, question mark. And as a freshman or a first year's college student, you should have a lot of confusing parts. That's part of the process of learning, right? You can't learn if you don't know what you don't understand, because that's learning, right? It's like, I don't know, this is confusing. The struggle, right? The struggle is real, I know. And that is, meaning you're doing something right. If you read through things and there's no confusion and there's no struggle, you're not being challenged. You're not really learning, right? So if you're struggling, don't get frustrated. Just understand that's part of the process. It is part of the process. And then, go back to that main point. What is the main point of this text? Is it important? Is it useful for me? And then how is it useful for me? What's my takeaway? What do I need to take away from this? Now, maybe the professor has told you what you need to take away from it, but sometimes no. And also, we need to personalize our knowledge. We need to say, what's useful for me here, in my career, in my life, for this course. So you really have to take ownership. And taking ownership of your reading is something that you should be doing in all your courses, not just in this class, but definitely for this class. When you're given reading assignments, you should be really critically engaging with them and using that process, taking your notes, thinking about it, engaging with the text. If you have not completed assignment 3, please do Reflecting on My Mother Tongue. And remember, that's a critical engagement with Bahamian Creole English, Whole Not Broken by Shanti Seymour. So please do that assignment if you haven't done so. I think everyone has already done it by now. It's been quite a while. And just remember that assignment 1 and assignment 2, you only need to put that up on the Moodle if you did not pass it in before the hurricane. That's only for the restart after the hurricane. And then in the next video that's up here on this Moodle will be a review of the writing process, types of writing, and getting into Essay 1, the survival essay, and the first assignment for that. So make sure you watch that next. Thanks. Thank you. Having trouble shutting it.